moving on tonight. Now, before we go, we have a bit of a problem. You may have noticed that Trump has completely decimated this week, and unfortunately, in doing that, he's essentially destroyed our plans for this show, because we wanted to give you one of our usual deep dives into an extremely boring topic. We've chosen the TSA, and there is clearly not enough time left for me to do it properly, but I will not be defeated, so I'm going to give you a full Last Week Tonight story that should take 20 minutes in just 3 minutes. Are you ready for this? There's no time. There is no time for that. Let's go. Our main story tonight concerns the TSA, the only people who worry more about what's stuck up your butt than you do. Long story short, there are problems and there are potential solutions, and it's more complicated than you might think. This graph goes up, this graph goes down. In combination, that's clearly a real problem. Then I was going to show you this woman who believes some TSA techniques are an invasion of her privacy.
I think it's an invasion of my privacy.
That's not how that word is pronounced. Then I was going to show you a couple of victims of inappropriate TSA conduct, and then to lighten the mood, I was going to hit you with a clip involving Muppet penguins. 1, 2, 3, 4 penguins that were by the door. Believe me, that actually made sense in the context of our piece. Broadly speaking, penguins are a flightless bird, so in theory, if they wanted to go somewhere, they might have to deal with the TSA. You can imagine the kind of fun graphics we had planned. Here's one of Trump with a penguin. I was also going to try and break down TSA procedures using this clip.
Sensitive areas like the breast, groin and buttocks.
All three of those things are objectively funny, but we would be placing them next to a story where that clip would actually be sad. So how long we got? 90 seconds, oh shit. OK, we're going to skip this clip, and this clip. That woman there is the TSA chief. No time to get into what she's saying there and how it may affect you, but just enough time to show you this graphic of Vladimir Putin and Boris Yeltsin giving each other handjobs. It would have made some sense in context. We also had this TSA cartoon for you.
It looks kind of scary.
No time for a joke there. We're also going to spend a decent amount of time with the TSA's official Instagram account. Here is an actual picture where someone asked them, are knife nanas allowed? I mean, come on. Knife nanas? We're not supposed to make a joke about knife nanas? We also don't have time for this graph. I don't have time for this graph. And this graph is actually a bigger problem than you might think. But we have to move past it. And this is the part where I have to say, to be fair, and read what the TSA has said about an incident that I was going to mention earlier. And to be fair, they say we conducted a thorough review. And you know what? I don't have time for this either. Then I was going to say 48%, 41 out of 50 states, $4.8 billion, and $9,000, which I know doesn't sound like a lot, but it actually is. And to show you how much, we were going to use the GDP of Moldova. 20 seconds left, OK? Here's 3 pull quotes, all of which are important, the second of which involves 20 tons of cocaine. Here's an elephant snorting cocaine. And here is where I was going to reach my conclusion, which we absolutely do not have time for. And then, just to cheer everyone up at the end of a long and sporadically depressing show, we were going to give you something joyful and fun to watch, and it was the penguins! We had these penguins! The penguins were going to cheer us up! And I guess they still can. Look, penguins. It's just nice. That's all it is. Things are allowed to be nice. The point is, write your congressman about the issues it's in discussed tonight. Can you do that thing where you laugh with your mouths? I love that. That's one of my favourite things in the world. Enjoy it. Enjoy it now and forever. That's our show.
The breaking news this morning, the President of the United States just threatened the man he fired as FBI director.
In an extraordinary tweet today, Trump warned James Comey better hope that there are no tapes of our conversations before he starts leaking to the press.
Tweets like that are actually really difficult to pass because they are somehow both a borderline obstruction of justice and the meaningless rantings of a confused old idiot. They exist in 2 opposite states simultaneously. Trump is truly a Schrodinger's arsehole. And I will say this. If he is recording everything that happens in the Oval Office, I actually don't want to hear those tapes. Because I'm assuming it's just his voice muttering the sentence, I never wanted any of this, over and over again, occasionally interrupted by mattress commercial jingles and string cheese farts. So at this point, President Trump has made it very clear. He fired the director of the FBI, at least partially due to unhappiness with the Bureau's investigation into his campaign's possible collusion with Russia, which is both shocking and yet completely unsurprising. There is really nothing Trump could do to genuinely shock me right now. If you said he fired Comey because he's investigating Russia, I'd believe you. If you said he did it because Comey is 6'8" and Trump feels like a tiny little man standing next to him, I would believe you. If you said he fired Comey, walked into the Oval Office, spread peanut butter on his genitals, brought in 35 squirrels and yelled, "Buckle up, Daddy's brought dinner," I'd say, sure, yeah, sure, why not? That sounds like something the President of the United States would do. That's the world we live in now. You know what? It is too easy to point at Trump being crazy. That's what he does. That is not going to stop, and it's going to be exhausting for everyone. The important question is, what do the rest of us do? And that brings us to Congress. 534 people less annoying than Ted Cruz, and also Ted Cruz. Because it is time for each and every one of them to pick a lane here. They do have options. Obviously, there are the investigations that are currently ongoing, but they could also press Deputy AG Rod Rosenstein to appoint a special counsel within the Justice Department. But at the very, very least here, they need to acknowledge that what has happened is fucked up and not continue to give non-answers like the one Paul Ryan did when asked about Trump's tape recording threat.
I've decided I'm not going to comment on the tweets of the day or the hour. I haven't seen them all, to be candid with you. Look, the comment, I'm sure some of you probably want to ask this question as well. No one's disputing the fact that the president has the right to hire or fire an FBI director. He made that decision. It's been made.
Yeah, but that's not answering the question, is it? That's just regurgitating what happened. It's honestly incredible to watch a man who spends 90 minutes every morning working out refuse to show any strength whatsoever. Apparently, no part of P90X targets the backbone. And at town halls this week, some members of Congress, like Rod Blum from Iowa, have been in such deep denial, they don't seem aware of how bad what they're saying sounds.
Will you support an independent investigation into Trump and his campaign's purported ties to Russia?
Not at the current time. If Trump was guilty of something, would he fire the FBI director? Because that'd be a pretty dumb move.
Yeah. Yes, it would, Rod. Yes. And unless Blum has a disease where he says genuine things in a sarcastic voice, that was also a very stupid thing to say. Oh, yeah, right, unicorns are imaginary and penises are where the pee comes from. Whatever, idiots. Leave me alone. The point is, the Founding Fathers created a system of checks and balances to limit the power of the president, but it only works if someone fucking checks or balances. And if you don't, it's no longer on Trump, it's on you. Because when you've got the presidential equivalent of a 5-year-old shitting on the salad bar of a Ruby Tuesdays, at some point, you stop blaming the 5-year-old and you start blaming the people who are not stopping him. Stop that boy, that's what I'm saying. Stop that boy now. Now, for now, moving on to a quick update.
Our top story tonight, the House has passed a bill to repeal and replace Obamacare. The vote was tight, 217 for and 213 against.
Yes, in a shock move, the US House passed the American Health Care Act by a whisker. They were so desperate for votes, Jason Chaffetz flew in following foot surgery with his leg up on a jaunty scooter, zipping around like a corgi with hip dysplasia. The real shock, though, was how quickly all this went down. Changes were still being made to the bill this week, and the CBO, which estimates the cost and impacts of proposed laws, hadn't even had time to score the final version. And multiple members of Congress admitted they hadn't even read the whole thing.
Did you read this entire bill?
Yeah. I wouldn't say every, yes, I turned through every page. As to whether or not I got through some of the details in some of the pages, no. But yes, I attempted to read the entire bill.
Wait, you turned through every page? That's not how you read a bill, that's how you check a bill for spiders. Oh, I can't say whether this bill will cause millions to lose insurance, but it does have the Mark Sanford no spiders guarantee. Now, in fairness, as Congressman Chris Collins pointed out, it is not essential that representatives read every single word of a bill.
We rely on our staff and we rely on our committees, and I'm comfortable that I understand this bill in its entirety, Wolf, without pouring through every word. And I'm just being quite honest. That's the way it is.
Now, you know what? That is actually fair. What really matters is that politicians like Collins fully understand the contents of this bill. But When the Buffalo News asked him if he knew that it would cut funding for a program providing insurance to over 600,000 low and middle-income people in New York State, including over 19,000 people in 2 counties that he represents parts of, he indicated that he didn't and said, "Explain that to me." And, OK, I can explain that to you right now. This bill could cause many of your constituents to get thrown into an individual marketplace they cannot afford, and when they realise that, they are going to be furious with you. Essentially, you fucked up. In fact, here is the amount that you fucked up shown graphically. Here is you fucking up shown in a scatter plot, and here is a Precious Moments figurine explaining exactly what you just did. Have I explained this clearly enough? Maybe ask your staff to read what she's holding and tell you what it means. Now, we've talked multiple times on this show about everything that was bad with the previous version of this bill. A bill, incidentally, that was estimated to result in 24 million fewer Americans having insurance after 10 years. And the bill that passed this week had all of the things that were bad about the last one, with a particularly unpleasant addition.
The Republican bill would roll back the Affordable Care Act's protections for patients with pre-existing conditions. Health insurers would still have to cover them, but the bill includes a mechanism allowing insurance companies to raise rates on those patients.
Yes, they took a bad thing and managed to make it even worse. It's like watching Mariah Carey's Glitter and saying, you know what this needs? Jar Jar Binks. And look, Republicans are currently saying that no one can be denied coverage for pre-existing conditions under this bill. But the truth is, if you have one, and there is a gap in your coverage for any reason, you could be charged a lot more, potentially so much more that coverage becomes unaffordable. It's like if your daughter asks, "Can I have a cookie?" And you say, "Sure, that'll be $1.5 billion, Katie. You have not been denied this cookie. You still have full access to it should you choose to become successful enough to be able to afford it. Now get out of my sight." So this bill now heads to the US Senate, who are expected to write their own version, and while it may be slightly more moderate, that could really still amount to basically cutting a shit sandwich in half. And if any bill gets to President Trump's desk, we already know he will sign it. This guy would sign a live snake as long as it had Obamacare repeal written on it. So it is dangerous to assume that this bill will die on its own. Your senators are incredibly important right now, and they're going to recess soon. So you need to let them know how you feel about this. You only get one shot at this, one opportunity. And I know the perfect song to pump you up, but as New Zealand has shown me, we cannot legally play it. What we can play you is 8 Mile Thug, an actual Eminem-esque song that we found. The point here is, if I may, you've got to lose track of yourself in the tune. The minute, you know what, I'm not doing this, just call your senators. Call your senators. And now, this.
And
For now, let's move on to Turkey, a country that shares its name with a bird, and not just any bird, the hottest bird. Looking good, my friend. Looking good. Now, we've talked before about Turkish President Recep Erdogan, the mustachioed strongman who once got hoof-punched in the dick by a horse. Well, he has been attempting to consolidate his power for years, and last Sunday, he took his boldest step yet.
President Erdogan declared victory yesterday in a referendum that gives him sweeping new powers.
His critics say this is a step towards dictatorship.
Oh, that's great. I guess I can now add Turkey to my list of things to worry about, along with America, the French election, and whether John Cena is having a happy 40th birthday today, and how the fuck John Cena and I are the exact same age. Oh, my God. That is heartbreaking. But the point is, the power this referendum gives Erdogan is sweeping.
Erdogan now has broad, unchecked powers and the authority to potentially remain in office until 2029.
It's true. The referendum gives Erdogan the power to do pretty much everything short of building a statue of himself with an erection that citizens will be forced to give pretend handjobs to. But to be honest, it might actually have given him the power to do that as well. The legitimacy of the results were immediately called into question after reports of voting irregularities, and European observers criticised the referendum, saying it took place on an unlevel playing field, something that Erdogan did not take well.
George nedir? Hans nedir? Helga nedir?
What George, Hans, or Helga say, that's not our problem, Erdogan said, mocking European election monitors questioning the results.
Ouch. That is dismissive, especially since George, Hans and Helga sounds like a former East German folk rock group. We are George, Hans and Helga, prepared to have the sounds of peace and love administered promptly into your ears and your brains, my Freunde. But this really does put America in a very tricky situation. Turkey is a critical ally, so any reaction to this referendum needed to be handled delicately. And to his genuine credit, Sean Spicer refused to issue a comment on the contested results.
My understanding is there's an international commission that is reviewing this and issues a report, so 10 to 12 days, and so we'll wait and let them do their job.
That is a good idea. Build the administration a little time. Don't jump into the situation without thinking through the complicated... But you all know what's coming now, right?
US President Donald Trump has called Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan to congratulate him on his narrow referendum triumph.
Yeah, that happened the same day. And I guess at least it would have been a fun call. Oh, congratulations on narrowly winning a vote that made you, a divisive, egomaniacal bully, enormously powerful in your country. Thanks, same to you, Donald. Thanks. Aren't we the worst? We are the worst. Goodbye. Bye-bye. And think about it, because it's an interesting thing about this. Why is Trump so eager to stay on Erdogan's good side? Well, one explanation for that actually comes from Trump himself in this interview that he gave to Breitbart in 2015.
Well, I have a little conflict of interest because I have a major building in Istanbul, and it's a tremendously successful job. It's called Trump Towers, 2 towers instead of 1. Not the usual 1, it's 2.
Of course to everything you just heard. Of course there's a conflict of interest. Of course it's caught on tape. Of course he pronounces it Istanbul. And of course he has a childlike surprise that towers can come in 2s. And look, between his actions regarding North Korea and Turkey this week, World War III is beginning to feel like Trump's armada. It's not here yet, but it sure as shit feels like it's on its way. Has at his disposal.
We learned a short time ago, for the first time in combat, the U.S. military dropped a 21,000-pound bomb in eastern Afghanistan. Inside the Air Force, inside the military, it quite seriously is referred to as the mother of all bombs.
OK, now there is obviously a lot to unpack there, but let's just take a minute and appreciate the fact that we finally reached a point where mothers can be bombs too. Hashtag mom bombs, hashtag feminism. But minutes after that historic bomb dropped, Trump took a victory lap that was tripped up slightly by one very simple question.
We are so proud of our military, and it was another successful event.
Did you authorize it, sir?
Everybody knows exactly what happened, and what I do is I authorize my military. We have the greatest military in the world, and they've done a job as usual, so we have given them total authorization.
What the fuck was that? That was a yes or no question to which you vomited 38 words, none of which were yes or no, although, to be fair, none of them were Holocaust Center either, so I guess we should be at least partially relieved. And incidentally, later reports suggest that the US commander who ordered the bomb drop didn't need and didn't request President Trump's approval, which means Trump has placed a significant amount of authority in the hands of his commanders. And you may think that's good. You may think that's bad. But I would not expect Trump to curb that power anytime soon, because, as we talked about last week, this is a man who responds to praise. And yet again, he is being praised for this. Just watch Trump's favourite morning show, Fox and Friends, respond to the bombing.
The video is black and white.
Good morning.
That is what freedom looks like. That's the red, white, and blue.
Well, one of my favorite things in the 16 years I've been here at Fox News is watching bombs drop on bad guys.
Oh, that's a coincidence, because one of my favourite things in 4 seasons on this show is getting to look directly into the camera and say, "Fuck you, Geraldo, I hope your moustache gets caught in a box fan." Oh, that felt amazing. That felt absolutely amazing. But Geraldo wasn't done. He had strategic advice for the man who was almost certainly watching.
It's not going to win the war, but it certainly sends a message. The message has to be, We're coming for you. You know, I had a bully in high school, a guy named Richie. You never knew what Richie was going to do. Richie had he'd have a temper. Sometimes he'd want to kill you, and sometimes he'd let you go. I like that they think that Donald Trump is like Richie from my high school. I want the bad guys to think that he could do anything to them at any moment, and I think that that has a positive impact.
Holy shit! You see, this is why bullying never works. If you have a bully in school, there is a good chance he's turning some kid into the next Geraldo Rivera. And if you have a bully in the White House, he does violent, impulsive things that seem to be inching us closer to, among other things, potential nuclear war with North Korea. And if that happens, it's going to take a fucking amazing piece of chocolate cake to help us forget about it. So much for joining us. Just time for a quick recap of the week, and it has been frantically busy. The Senate triggered the nuclear option to put Neil Gorsuch onto the Supreme Court and therefore a lobster onto our all-dog court. Devin Nunes recused himself from the House investigation of Trump's Russia ties after he himself came under an ethics investigation. A classic Devin move. And of course, on Thursday, there was the biggest news of all.
We are coming on the air right now because President Trump has just ordered a military strike on Syria.
On President Trump's orders, U.S. warships launched between 50 and 60 Tomahawk cruise missiles targeting a Syrian government air base.
Yes, a Syrian airfield this week was bombed by President Trump. Two words that, when placed in a sentence like that, are as downright unsettling as ham smoothie or placenta kimono. And before we get into what we did and why we did it, it is worth taking a moment to acknowledge some of the reactions to the airstrikes themselves, particularly within the media, which occasionally bordered on the orgasmic.
We see these beautiful pictures at night from the decks of these two U.S. Navy vessels in the Eastern Mediterranean. I am tempted to quote the great Leonard Cohen, "I'm guided by the beauty of our weapons." And they are beautiful pictures of fearsome armaments.
What are you talking about? It is a little ironic to see Brian Williams on MSNBC talking about the beauty of our weapons, because that is not a phrase anyone would use if they had, for instance, ever been in a helicopter that was hit by ground fire. And he wasn't even done talking about whatever the fuck he was talking about.
Because life imitates art, there's a scene in The American President where Michael Douglas, playing the fictional president, is being told that an airstrike against a radar installation is proportional and it's presidential. And he chooses to think about the guy who's coming on the night shift as part of a cleaning crew and how he's going to lose his life in this presidential airstrike. Well, the same thing happened tonight, obviously.
No, it didn't. Because first, this is not a song, it's not a movie. We fired real missiles at an actual country. And also, there is nothing obvious about Trump expressing concern for another human being. I am pretty sure the only time he's ever thought about a cleaning crew has been to say, "There's a fingerprint on this vase, don't pay them this week." But it wasn't just the media who were excited. Some of Trump's biggest critics had praise for the strikes, with John McCain and Lindsey Graham saying Trump deserves the support of the American people, and Chuck Schumer saying it was the right thing to do. While, interestingly, some of Trump's most prominent supporters were significantly less happy, including Alex Jones, who even tried to weave a conspiracy around it.
So paradoxically, Trump is really disintegrating and in my eyes, on many levels. But paradoxically, he's doing so much good that I realize they're maneuvering him into bad so they won't call him a Russian agent, so he can look tough to the Russians, so he can look tough to the Chinese, and so he can shut down his critics. That once you feed the pirate, they're going to want more, more, more.
Wait. Once you feed the pirate, they're going to want more. Not only is all of that crazy, that is not even a phrase. I'm against these strikes because you know what they say, if you want to skin a ferret, you better bring your dancing shoes. And I mean it. Once you start washing an alligator, paradoxically, you don't stop till it's dry. But there... My employer. Shit! I wasn't supposed to say that. Oh, fuck, they're going to be so mad with me. The CIA had a difficult week.
Tonight, WikiLeaks has a bombshell, publishing these documents, what could be the biggest exposure of U.S. intelligence gathering methods since Edward Snowden's leak.
Well, 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 the spy agency has become the spied upon. And you have to admit there is a certain satisfaction in seeing that. It's akin to going and shitting on the neighbourhood dog's lawn. How do you fucking like it? How do you like it now? And the documents initially sounded pretty alarming.
According to WikiLeaks, the CIA explored the possibility of hacking into the software of modern cars.
It can be accessed from outside and perhaps taken control of. And this can let you do a whole lot of things, from playing the music to taking control of the car entirely and crashing it if you want to assassinate somebody.
Well, that escalated quickly. First, I'll make them listen to Coldplay, and then it's murder. But listen again to how that report characterized this news.
According to WikiLeaks, the CIA explored the possibility of hacking into the software of modern cars.
That's right. They explored the possibility of it. And that is important because we already knew that cars could technically be hacked. So it's not surprising, really, to hear that the CIA might be interested in doing that too. But exploring the possibility of doing something isn't really the same as doing it. A partial list of things that I've thought about doing but have not done includes karate, chess, guitar, becoming a wine guy, CrossFit, going vegan, learning Spanish, alpaca farming, volunteer firefighting, and being a guy with a woodshop who spends a year making, like, the perfect birdhouse. But the thing is, this story ate up a lot of media time this week, but the allegations were slightly less alarming than early coverage suggested. Take another one of the big claims.
A program called Weeping Angel, which can remotely turn a Samsung TV anywhere in the world into a secret listening device.
One CIA hacking operation called Weeping Angel.
Weeping Angel.
If you've got a Samsung TV, you think you're watching TV. Oh, honey, that thing is watching you.
Okay, first, she should deliver all of the news. 19 dead in a blazing apartment fire, all of them children, girlfriend. But second, Weeping Angel sounds less like a spy program and more like a tactic your mom uses to keep you from masturbating. Look at the Weeping Angel, David. You did that. You made her cry. But still, you can't argue that the notion that the CIA can listen to anyone in the world through their Samsung TV is scary. But, again, if you read the documents, you'll find this program applies to Samsung TVs from 2012 and 2013, and the malware was installed via USB. So, presumably, the CIA needed to physically stick that into your TV. And even if that happened, experts advise that there's still actually a potential way to circumvent it. It's a little complicated, so I'll walk you through it. Step one, unplug the TV. And that is it. End of steps. You're off the grid. But what is most important to keep in mind here regarding these revelations is the CIA, with some narrow exceptions, is barred from spying domestically. And unlike the Snowden leaks, there is nothing in these documents so far showing illegal surveillance of Americans, which is not to say there wasn't interesting stuff in there. For instance, Weeping Angel was just the beginning of the CIA's stupid code names.
A range of CIA programs with code names like After Midnight and Brutal Kangaroo, all now in the hands of terrorists and foreign targets.
It's not just After Midnight and Brutal Kangaroo, though. Other programs were called Crunchy Lime Skies, Elder Piggy, Angerquake and McNugget, which are also, interestingly, the names of a cappella groups at Dartmouth. You should really hear Crunchy Lime Sky's rendition of Raw. It is fierce. And look, I am not saying that these leaks are not a big deal. The mere fact that WikiLeaks obtains these documents at all is significant. And more are apparently coming, so this story is still developing.